All right, welcome to our next lecture on the Python primer that's for Odoo. What we're going to do next is remember how in our other Odoo application that we had the import functions and at the very top of our Python code. We're going to do that again in order to pull in a library. And so it's just something that you need to know about with Python is that you're going to have statements such as import in which you pull in libraries that you're going to use for various things. And so when you find things that you need to hook into your applications or you need to integrate with Odoo, it's important you understand these basic functions, this import, and meaning pulling in libraries, and that not to let them scare you. It just means that it's going to give you access to more tools than you would normally have within your script. And in this case, we're going to import one called random. And you might already be able to guess, especially if you've programmed a little bit, that what this random really does for us is it gives us access to a random number generator. And so you'll notice down here under our amount, where we're checking for it being greater than 50, that we could use a random number generator here to make it a little more interesting. So if I go in here and I just type random and print and then dot, there's several functions that come with this. And the dots, a lot of times you'll see these in programming languages, is it gives you access to what's inside of a particular object. And so in this case, this random module that we've pulled in, it has a bunch of functions, and we can access these functions by this dot. And one of them is a range. So I can say random.rand_range. And with this parentheses, I can specify a start range, and I can specify an end range, and I can close off that parentheses. So a lot of programming languages have this syntax where we pass along what are called parameters, and you separate them by commas. And in this case, we're saying that we want to use this random library, and we want it to return a random range between 1 and 100. So let's go ahead and run this and see what we get over here. Let's clear this and then run it. And it says the amount is greater than 50. The problem is we're not printing the message. So let's print our message so we know what number we're getting. So I forgot to do that. So I just uncommented this. And that's why sometimes it's a good practice to comment out your debug code, because you can always uncomment it and get back information. And that's what we're doing. We're getting back this, and I can run it again. Okay, so we got 21 that time, which is less than 50. And I can run it again, and we got 49, that's less than 50. We can run it again, 24, less than 50. 62, greater than 50. So you can see we're using this random number generator. We brought it in really fast, and all we had to do was specify here is the range we want. It took that amount, and it's telling us what it is right here, and then it checks it for us right here, so that we have just a condition. So now let's see how we could maybe use this random amount for another purpose, like for a loop. Because right now we're doing a condition, and we can use conditions to check for things on strings and numbers, and it's going to be important for you to get more comfortable with using conditions. But now it's time to move on to some other structures. And one of the things that we can use is we can use a for loop. And so in this case, I can say for, and I will use just x for an example number, and I'll say in range 1, comma, and we'll use the amount that comes from right up here in our random number, and I'll put a colon, and then I'm going to just remember 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to say print amount, just like that. And so if you've never programmed before, this is probably confusing. If you have programmed before, you probably know what's going to happen. But what is going to happen is that we're telling this program that we want to go through all of the ranges from 1 to whatever this amount is, which will be randomly generated. And if it's 20, that means it's going to go in each time. And actually, I did this wrong. I want to print X. I don't want to print amount. I want to print X. So it's going to print a sequential number all through this range. And we'll see this when I hit Control O and run it. It just generated a 3. Out of the 100, you'll notice, it just happened to generate a 3, and so it went 1, 2. So it's not inclusive. It doesn't pick up the last one. So there, you'll see it did 39. And if I scroll back up, it says 40. So now, from a programming perspective, this is an exercise for you. How could we get it to be inclusive to go all the way to 40 instead of 39? Well, how do we get it so it doesn't stop one short? So I'll let you think about that a second before I show you the answer. You can pause the video if you want. How would you change this code so we can get all the way to 40? Okay, well, the answer is pretty simple. We just need to come up here and put a +1 so that when we get whatever amount we get, we just add 1 to it so that we are inclusive rather than coming up one short. It's actually a term they'll use in programming sometimes called a one-off error. So I'm going to go ahead and do it again, and now you'll see it says we're at 63, and that matches the 63. So we're matching. We have 1 for each time through. So you can see we're looping through, and each time through this is happening, it's printing that X. So it's continuous. What if we only wanted to go halfway to the numbers that we counted? So say our random number 63. What if we said, oh, let's only do half of them? How would we do that? What would be an easy way to do half that? Okay, if you didn't pause the video, you can, but here's how you would do something that simple. You just divide by 2, and now you get half. So if when we run it this time, we got 84, notice it went to 41, we'd still have to do the +1 on there, obviously, to get it to round right. But you get the idea. This is a for loop, and we can now start to look at, in the next video, some sets and other ways of processing data. In this case, we saw how to loop through data that's just a number, a range of amounts. But let's see how we can work with data that's a little more interesting. So that's what we'll do in our next lecture.